everyone, welcome back. Today I'm here with my February wrap-up as well as my March TBR, and apologies, I have a little bit of a cold or something going on, so my voice is more quiet and nasally than is normal. During the month of February, I read 5 books totaling 1,148 pages. 2 of the books were nonfiction, 1 was an epic fantasy, 1 was a modern science fiction, and 1 was a vintage science fiction. The 2 nonfiction books were the first 2 that I read in the month, and they were both my picks for Black History Month. I actually talked in more detail about them in my last reading update, wrap-up, TBR, etc. video, so I won't go into too much detail here and rehash things I've already gone over, but the 2 books were Black History in Its Own Words. This is a really cool coffee table book. Black History in Its Own Words presents Ronald Wimberly's illustrations of Black luminaries alongside the words that define them and their times. So it features, I think, about 25 people, and each of the illustrations has a quote on it, and then on the opposite page it tells you a little bio about that person and also tells you where the quote comes from. And it was the page set featuring Sojourner Truth in this book that then prompted me to read my other nonfiction book from February, and that was The Narrative of Sojourner Truth, which is a really quick read. It's about 80 pages long. It's a bit of a difficult read due to the language and the content, but it's also something that I think is really worthwhile and the sort of thing that I wanted to read for Black History Month. So I'm very glad that I read both of these, and I would recommend them. The only other book I read in physical copy last month was City of Dragons by Robin Hobb. This is the 3rd book in her Rainweld Chronicles series, and I've been really enjoying the series in general. I love all of Robin Hobb's books, and I've been buddy reading these with Frankie from Frankie Reads. We both struggled a little bit with this one though. In fact, Frankie ended up just setting it aside. I was pulled in enough to keep going, and I'm glad that I finished it, but it definitely wasn't my favorite of Hobb's books. I felt like there was a lot of rehashing in this one. They were kind of agonizing over the same relationship struggles that have been going on throughout the series. When there was progress that happened in the storyline, I really enjoyed that. There just wasn't a lot of that, and I wish that there was more. I did hear, I think Maya from Maya Reed said that originally this series was meant to be a trilogy, but Hobb and her publishers decided to turn it into a 4-book series, so that might account for some of the rehashing and kind of the just repetition of the things that have happened in previous books. So that might be the case, but whatever caused it, I think this book suffered a little bit because of it. All of that being said, I still give it 4 stars because even if Robin Hobb is telling me the same thing she's told me 5,000 times before, the way she says it and just her style and writing, I could listen to her repeat it all and enjoy myself, apparently, because I still couldn't put the book down. Our pick for this More Sci-Fi Book Club in February was Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. This one was Adrian's pick, and it was actually my favorite book of the month. I gave this one 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I was very curious to see how this book would turn out because I went into it pretty blind. I generally enjoyed what I've learned about Arthur C. Clarke as a person, and I did enjoy his writing style a lot in 2001. I think 2001 wasn't as perfect of a book for me just because the character development wasn't there. That's just not really something that he does. This book, however, this book still did not have a lot of character development, don't get me wrong. It did have slightly more though, and I appreciated that very much. This book was almost entirely focused on discovery and the science and just mystery behind first contact, and a first contact that's very different from the ones that we saw in, for example, Star Trek, because in this one, we're not really interacting or speaking with or even seeing the aliens. Instead, we are just seeing this colossal ancient vessel of sorts that has appeared in our solar system that's seemingly abandoned and that we are making contact with and exploring and trying to piece together some of its mysteries. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the just whole vibe of the book was really fun. I was on the edge of my seat. I had no way of predicting what would happen next because it just did not follow any sort of traditional story arc or tropes or anything like that. It's just a book unto itself, and that was really refreshing and fun. I definitely recommend this one. It's the first in a series, and I'm hoping to pick up the second book soon. I actually have it requested from my library right now, but it looks like it won't be available for a few weeks yet. But I'm hoping to at least get it on my April TBR. The last book I read in February was The Fractal Prince, which is the sequel to Quantum Thief. I will never be able to say the name of the author. I'm sorry, it's down here somewhere. But it is a fantastic, modern, hard sci-fi book. The series itself is very cerebral. It's definitely hard sci-fi and pulls from a lot of physics concepts. I thought that the second book was actually even better than the first because it was really building the world a bit more. It's building a lot more sort of mythology, a lot more lore. I felt like we were kind of getting into some deeper cultural aspects of the different parts of the world. Again, this book is so cerebral that I feel like, I mean, maybe some people understood it a little bit better. When I'm reading it, it's making sense as I'm going, but if you ask me a lot of questions about how this world functions, I don't know that I could answer it. It's complicated, but it was still a really fun read. It's very action-packed, and I felt like I was getting a much better connection to the main cast through this book. There is a third book in the series, and I'm hoping to get to that one day soon. I had a very large gap between when I read the first book and when I read the second one here, so I'm hoping to be a little bit quicker about picking up the third book now, so hopefully that will help me retain a bit of the memory of how the world works when I get to book 3. Moving on to my TBR for March, I have 4 books picked out as well as 1 extra short story, and this month I decided to switch things up a little bit. I know I tend to get really focused on science fiction and fantasy books, which is fine because I love them and they're great, but I also enjoy reading a lot of other genres, so this month I'm really trying to focus on mixing more of those in. Starting off with my current read, I have Unaccustomed Earth by Jhumpa Lahiri. And Jhumpa Lahiri is an author that I have really enjoyed in the past. I've read Interpreter of Maladies, which is her other short story collection, as well as The Namesake, which is a novel that was turned into a movie and stars Kal Penn. I enjoyed all of it. I haven't read anything by her since then, which was probably around 2007 or 2008, but I picked up this book a few years ago when I was volunteering at a bookstore in town, and it's just been sitting on my shelf waiting for this moment. This is a collection of 8 short stories, and the back of it says that it explores the secrets of family life, which I think is a really great way to encapsulate what I've read so far. All of the stories in this collection so far, and I'm guessing the entire collection because this also seems to be true of everything I've read from her, feature families that are of Indian descent or that are from India, that have recently moved to America. She seems to write a lot about that sort of experience of being a first-generation American from a Bengali family, and the ways that American culture and Indian culture can come together to merge or clash or what have you. I do feel like I should give a trigger warning because so far there has been discussion of self-harm and addictions. I'm only partway through the book, so I don't know what other issues might come up throughout, but just keep that in mind going into this read. Despite those heavier issues, I am still really enjoying this book. Jhumpa Lahiri just has a way of writing characters where even if it's in a short story, I just feel like she has fleshed them out so well. They're so knowable, they're so real feeling, and that's something that I really enjoy about her writing. It's also just a really interesting view at Indian culture and the sort of struggles that might come up being a first-generation American from an Indian family. I've only got about 100 pages left in this book, so I'm hoping to finish it up soon and be able to move on to something else, but so far I'm really enjoying it. Next on my list is a book called Hope Never Dies. This is a fairly ridiculous premise, but I'm super excited to try it out. This is an Obama-Biden mystery. Yes, you heard me right. The author of this is Andrew Schaffer, who seems to just write a lot of fun parody-type books. His other best-selling book is 50 Shames of Earl Grey. And I have no idea what that's about, but color me intrigued. In this book, an Amtrak conductor has been murdered who happens to be one of Joe Biden's favorite Amtrak conductors, and so he and Barack Obama must go on an adventure trying to solve the mystery, find the killer, and apparently do something about America's opioid epidemic at the same time. In truth, I've heard mixed reviews about this book from a few people that I know who have read it, but I'm still really excited to give it a try. I'm kind of just going in for the lulz, and like I've said this a million times, but even if it's terrible, I'm just ecstatic to have this cover art on my shelf. The third book that I have picked out for March is a historical romance, which is called The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. This is another one that's just been on my shelf for a really long time. I actually got this also at the bookstore that I used to volunteer at, where I got Unaccustomed Earth. This one, however, I got for 80 cents because it was $1 and I had a 20-cent discount for being a volunteer. Yeah, I have heard good things about this. I know Philippa Gregory is pretty big in the world of historical romance novels. I've read The Other Boleyn Girl, which she also wrote, and I'm pretty sure I remember enjoying reading that one. I think I read it as part of a romance book club that I was participating in for a while. In any case, this just sounds like it's going to be a fun way to mix things up, so we'll see how that goes once I get to it. And then, of course, there's the book for the S'more Sci-Fi Book Club. This was my month to pick, so I decided to go with The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. We've actually read H.G. Wells before. The War of the Worlds was in fact our first book for the book club, but ever since we read it, I've wanted to read something else by him, so this just seemed like a good opportunity to do so. Then going along with that, we're going to have a bonus read this month, which we don't always do, but I wanted to also read his short story, The Star, which was referenced in Rendezvous with Rama. You see the tie-in. So there you have my February wrap-up as well as my March TBR. Let me know down in the comments what you all have been reading, if you've read any of the books I mentioned and what you think about them if so. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I hope you all are having a wonderful week so far, and I will talk to you soon. Bye! Biko. All of this are either... I've only got... Biko. These stories, since then, which was probably around 2007, which was, I haven't read anything, oh my god, I just connect with them and see them as these real people. Starting off with the first 4 books picked out, as well as 1 extra, so I'm hoping to make that a little, I felt like I was getting a lot more. And I felt like I was getting a much better connection to pick up the second. It's the first in a series, and I'm hoping Frankie reads, which is a really